With the NFL draft having concluded a few weeks ago, it's finally time to look back and see how every NFL team did, pick by pick. That's right, I'm going to be grading every single pick from the 2025 NFL draft, team by team. I'm also going to be giving final grades to every team, reflecting my thoughts on their overall draft. This week, I'm covering every AFC team, and last week I covered every NFC team, so make sure to click the link in the description or the pinned comment to go watch that video after you're done with this one. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new. This video took a ton of time to make, and subscribing takes just a second and it really helps me out. Thank you, and let's get started. We'll start in the AFC North with the Cleveland Browns, and they had one of the most interesting drafts out of any team this year. And yes, I'll get to the Shedeur Sanders pick and why I gave it a big, fat, juicy F. But starting with Mason Graham, who they traded down from 2 to 5 to get and acquired an extra first round pick next year and the first pick in the second round this year. I really like Mason Graham. I thought he was the best D tackle in this class. He immediately enters as the best D tackle in that room for sure. He's got a great blend of athleticism and technique, and I think he's really good at both the run and the pass game. He's an explosive first step and can win in a variety of ways. He does have shorter arms, but overall I think he was a fantastic prospect and will be a great addition to this defensive line. They then grabbed Carson Schwarzenegger with the first pick in the second round, and I really like this one as well. Schwarzenegger is the best linebacker in this class after Giad Campbell. He's a good athlete at 6'2", 242 pounds, but he has incredible agility and change of direction. He's got great instincts and is also a pretty good tackler. Overall, he is really good in coverage and is a nice blitz threat. However, his run defense is less than ideal. He's undisciplined and is pretty easily taken out of the play by bigger blockers. But as someone who can immediately provide a pretty nice floor as a cover linebacker, this was a great pick. They then grabbed Quinshon Judkins 3 picks later, and he is immediately the RB1 on this team. I had Judkins as my RB5 in this class, and he was the third off the board, but that doesn't mean I think the Browns reached or anything. I can totally see why they took Judkins over Travion Henderson. The current back Jerome Ford has some pretty bad vision problems, and vision is one of Judkins' biggest strengths and one of Henderson's biggest weaknesses. I think he could be a true 3-down back in the league, and I overall really like this pick. They then got an absolute steal in Harold Fannin Jr., who isn't the biggest nor the best athlete, but I think he complements David Njoku really well. Njoku is the freak athlete who makes all the explosive plays, but as a safety blanket slash big slot receiver, I think Fannin is great. He's a really good route runner and has excellent hands and overall ball skills. He's also really good after the catch. I think the Browns are going to want to run quite a bit of 12 personnel, and Fannin is going to be a big part of that. This was an awesome pick. I'm going to skip over the Dylan Gabriel pick for now because I want to talk about him and Shedeur at the same time. So moving on to Dylan Sampson in the 4th round. And while it was interesting seeing them take another running back, I thought the value was absolutely there. Sampson was my RB9 and he was the 12th running back off the board. He is a super fast, explosive player who is smaller and doesn't offer much after contact, but the big play upside with him is really high. I think he could be a really good RB2 behind Judkins, and this was a great pick. But now it's time to talk about the Browns QB situation. I gave the Dylan Gabriel pick a B+, and the Shedeur Sanders pick an F, and here's why. I think, and I've heard other people saying this, so I know I'm not the only one who thinks this, but I think the Browns, before they drafted Shedeur Sanders, had a picture-perfect plan for this rebuild. And it started when they traded down from 2 to 5 in the first round. I think the Browns' plan was to try to get as many picks as they could next year and then do what I'm calling a competitive tank, where the Browns want to compete, they don't want to be absolute dog shit, but they want to tank. That's why the Dylan Gabriel pick makes a ton of sense. He's not a starting caliber quarterback, and he probably never will be, but whether it's him or Flacco or Pickett starting, that doesn't really matter. Browns in 2025 will still likely win 4 or 5 games and finish with a high pick. Then they could use all the picks they got this year to trade up for a high upside potential franchise quarterback, most likely Arch Manning. Then Flacco likely retires or leaves, and you have a QB room with Arch Manning, a potential franchise quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel, who by that point will likely be one of the better backups in the league. It's perfect. In 1 year, the Browns would have basically completed their rebuild and would have been able to start competing with the rest of the division again. I truly believe it was a perfect plan, until they picked Shedeur Sanders. The Browns had already made it clear that they didn't want Sanders, opting for Gabriel instead. Here's the problem with the Browns specifically taking Shedeur. It completely shatters the entire plan. They'll still probably win 4 or 5, maybe even 6 games next year. But the thing is, Shedeur is both too good right now and doesn't have enough upside to be a franchise quarterback. This roster isn't that good. Shedeur isn't going to be able to elevate it. But after the season, the Browns are going to trick themselves into believing Shedeur is good enough to lead this team. And they're going to be stuck with like the 25th best quarterback quarterback in the league or something rather than a potential franchise guy. Shedeur is only going to hold this team back from reaching their ceiling long term. It's a very similar situation to the Falcons and Desmond Ridder. Ridder was good after his rookie season, good enough that the Falcons made him the starter next season even though everyone knew he wasn't going to be a franchise guy. Luckily, the Falcons got rid of him after 1 year, but Shedeur is even worse for the Browns than Ridder was for the Falcons because Shedeur is better than Ridder. He's too good to get cut after 1 season, but he's not good enough to be a franchise quarterback. He's not good enough to elevate this pretty mediocre roster to playoffs or to the Super Bowl or anything like that. I wholeheartedly believe that the Browns had an amazing plan for this rebuild, but taking Shedeur ruined it. Overall, I'm giving this draft a B+. Outside of Shedeur, this was an incredible draft. They got a ton of absolutely amazing players, but I believe that the negative impact Shedeur is going to have on this team long term is going to be greater than any 5th round pick in history. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Shedeur will prove me wrong and make this take look stupid, but right now, I think that the Browns specifically taking Shedeur Sanders was one of the worst picks in this entire draft. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals, who only had 6 picks in this draft. They started off by taking Shamar Stewart, and Stewart is a really polarizing prospect. He's an absolute athletic freak of nature. At 6'5", 267 pounds, Stewart had a 40-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot 11-inch broad jump, and ran a 4.59 40-yard dash. He scored a 10 out of 10 on the RAS, ranking him number 1 out of 2,012 defensive ends since 1987. Oh, and he also has 34-inch arms, just to add the icing on the cake. The traits on this man are ridiculous, and the upside is incredibly high. However, at least right now, Stewart isn't an amazing football player. As a pass rusher, he's a complete one-trick pony. He wins in one way and one way only, power. His bull rush and rip move and stuff like that is pretty good, and he has an explosive first step, obviously. But that's about it. He really doesn't have any sort of finesse moveset. He doesn't do swim moves, cross chops, really anything like that. Meaning the second he runs into Jordan Mailata's big ass, he's basically cooked. But with the right coaching, he could be an absolutely incredible player, so I like taking him here in the 1st round. If he hits, that is huge for the Browns defense. They then grabbed Demetrius Knight in the 2nd round, and I didn't think this was all that bad of a pick. He's a good athlete, ran a 4.58 at 6'2", 235 pounds, and has good arm length at 32 and 5/8 inches. He's a solid coverage player and a solid run defender, but not much more than that. He can slip blocks well in his decent zone field, but isn't always the best at taking on blockers and isn't always able to keep up in man coverage. As a spot starter or rotational linebacker, I thought this was a decent pick that could turn into something. They then made what I thought was a really bad pick in Dylan Fairchild in the 3rd round. To take Fairchild over Wyatt Milam made absolutely no sense to me. Fairchild's athletic, sure, but he's just not that good of a football player. He's a tough time maintaining blocks and his footwork isn't all that great. Also, being a taller guard, he doesn't always win the leverage battle. I just thought this was a reach and there were better guards available. Then in the 4th round, they took another linebacker in Barrett Carter, and I don't think Carter's a horrible player or anything, but I just didn't think they needed to take another linebacker. They already have Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, plus they drafted Demetrius Knight earlier, and they also have 2nd-year player Mangman Jeongmeta, who made some plays for them last year. Carter is a smaller player with good athleticism and has some nice run defense capability, but he was really not good in coverage. I didn't see it with this pick. They then grabbed Jalen Rivers in the 5th round, who's a bigger tackle with long arms but has pretty bad injury concerns, and Taj Brooks in the 6th round, who is a productive running back that, while not being the best athlete, was good at making people miss and has good change of direction. I actually like that pick. They did have one of the better UDFA pickups, Caleb Etienne. Etienne is a massive 6'7", 329-pound tackle who has 36-inch arms and ran a 5.01 40-yard dash. That is an incredible mix of size, length, and speed. He could turn into something. Overall, I gave this draft a C. I like Shamar Stewart as their 1st round pick, but outside of that, nothing really stood out to me, and I really didn't like the Dylan Fairchild pick. This was a pretty mid draft. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and while they may have no idea what they're doing at the quarterback position right now, they sure as hell know how to draft. They started with Derek Harmon in the 1st round, and I thought this pick made a lot of sense. They need some young blood on that D-line, with Cameron Hayward being 36 and all. Harmon's a bigger dude, 6'4", 313 pounds, but he ran a 4.97 40-yard dash. He's got a good first step and fast hands that are tough to contend with. He'll also be able to learn from Cameron Hayward, which is a nice bonus. Great pick here. Then they got an absolute steal in Caleb Johnston in the 3rd 3rd round. Johnson was my RB6, and he was a 6th running back off the board, but to get him in the middle of the 3rd round when I thought he was a late 2nd to early 3rd round prospect is great value. He'll come in right away and be a great complement to Najee Harris. Johnson isn't all that fast, but he's got good size, vision, and ball security. He's an all-around great running back, and I thought this was a steal. But the good picks don't stop, as they took Jack Sawyer in the 4th round. Sawyer was an ultra-productive edge rusher at Ohio State. He made one of the plays of the season, a strip sack scoop and score on Quinn Ewers in the college football semifinals. He's got good hand placement and good lateral movement skills. His size and strength also help him in the run game. To be honest, with this selection, I think the Steelers solidified themselves as having the best edge room in the entire league. Obviously, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are great in their own right, but Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer might just be the best edge depth in the league. Even if both Watt and Highsmith go down, I still think Herbig and Sawyer can generate some semblance of a pass rush. This was a great pick. They then took Yaya Black in the 5th round, and I thought this was a fine pick. He's a big 336-pound nose tackle with long arms who could be a solid backup. But then they grabbed another steal in Will Howard in the 6th round. I was really high on Howard. I had him as my QB5, and he ended up being the 8th quarterback off the board. He has a ton of intriguing traits and has the ability to make every type of throw. He just isn't all that great at throwing over the middle consistently, and he checks it down too often. But I think this was amazing value. They then took Carson Bruner in the 7th round, who's a smaller athletic developmental linebacker, and Dante Kemp 3 picks later, who's a smaller athletic developmental corner. Both these were decent picks, and they didn't have any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I give the Steelers draft an A+, the first A+ I've given to any team so far. Not a single NFC team received an A+ from me, but the Steelers did. Out of their 7 picks, I thought 4 of them were excellent, and I think the Steelers absolutely nailed this draft. For the final team in the AFC North, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who made 11 picks in this year's draft. They started off with Malachi Starks in the 1st round, and this was a great pick. The Ravens already had an established box safety in Kyle Hamilton, and now Malachi Starks can be their deep safety. Starks played all over the field at Georgia, but I think he'll settle into his deep safety role and form a great duo with Kyle Hamilton. He's a good coverage player, especially in man coverage, and he's got good athleticism with smooth hips and good arm length. I think the Ravens might have just formed the best safety duo in the league, and their defense just got a whole lot better. But then they took Mike Green in the 2nd round, and I don't entirely know how to feel about this pick. I mean, it's an obvious A+ from a pure football standpoint. Mike Green is an incredible player who is a 1st round, maybe even top 15 talent, but the Ravens let everybody know that they're okay with assholes on their team. It started with Justin Tucker, and yes, the Ravens have now cut Tucker, but at the time they drafted Green, Tucker was still on their roster, and Green has had his fair share of off-field issues. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Green got kicked out of the University of Virginia after SA allegations, and that was after he had another SA allegation in high school. Green has denied all these allegations, but if they are true, that's obviously a real problem. On top of that, though way less serious, his interviews have apparently gone very poorly. I hope that Green doesn't have any problems because he is an incredible football player, but this pick could definitely backfire horribly. Green, as far as we know, is an alleged sex offender and has maturity issues and could be a problem for this team, especially in the locker room. Again, I obviously hope not. I obviously hope he works out, but you never know, and I don't think it paints the Ravens in a very good light. But let's move on from that and get to Emory Jones Jr., who does have some nice measurables, but I didn't think he was all that good at LSU. His hand usage isn't great, and he sometimes overextends and lets edge rushers by. He also had 9 penalties in 2024. I think Jones could develop into something, but I wouldn't have spent a day 2 pick on him. They then took Teddy Buchanan in the 4th round, and yes, that's how you spell his name. I was surprised also. Buchanan is an athletic linebacker who is pretty decent at Cal, but not amazing. He can cover space quickly, but gets caught on blocks too easily and misses fair share of tackles. I think he can be a solid LB3 though. They then grabbed Carson Vincent in the 5th round, who's a massive 6'7", 314-pound tackle with 34.5-inch arms, but also ran a 5'1", 240-yard dash. I thought he was actually pretty good at Alabama A&M, but did have a bit of a penalty problem and doesn't always do the best job of sustaining blocks. However, as a backup developmental tackle, I thought this was a really good pick. They then grabbed an athletic corner in Bilal Cohn, who ran a 4'4", 340 at 6'1". He had decent ball production and possesses good footwork and body control. I think he could be a really solid CB4. They then grabbed Tyler Loop out of Arizona. I don't have a problem with drafting kickers in the 6th round, and they did need one, so this was a fine pick. Loop had a career 83.8 field goal percentage and was really good from 40+ in 2024. They then selected LaJohntay Wester, who's a tiny 5'10", 163-pound receiver, but has good hands and speed. 7 picks later, they took Aeneas Peebles, who's an undersized D tackle, but was a really productive pass rusher. I thought this was a good pick. Another good pick was their 5th and final 6th-round selection, Robert Longerbeam, who's a small but fast corner that's pretty good in coverage. Their final pick was Garrett Dellinger, and I actually really like this one. Dellinger's an athletic freak, running a 5'1", 540-yard dash and benching 30 reps of 225 at 6'4", 325 pounds. He suffered a season-ending ankle injury after just 7 games in 2024, but was actually pretty good in those 7 games. He could definitely be something, and there weren't any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave this draft an A-. If Mike Green doesn't exit the league after 2 years, then this was a great draft, and I think the Ravens got a ton of pieces to really go for it all in 2025. Moving on to the AFC West, where we'll start with the Las Vegas Raiders, who made 11 picks in this draft, like the Ravens. And they started off with a bang, selecting Ashton Jeanty 6th overall. Jeanty is the best running back in this class, and is arguably the best running back prospect since Barry Sanders. The absolute maniacal shit this man can do is ridiculous. In 2024, Jeanty forced 152 missed tackles. The next closest guy was Cam Scadabo at 103. Jeanty is quite literally everything you're looking for in a running back, and this dude is going to be a monster in the league. They then took Jack Besh at the end of the 2nd round, and I like this pick. Besh immediately slides in as the wide receiver too, and will be the primary outside guy. He's not the fastest or most athletic, but he's got really good hands and has a large catch radius. Plus, he saw it after the catch and is a great run blocker. He has dealt with injuries in the past, so hopefully he can stay healthy, but I really like this pick. They then took Darian Porter at the top of the 3rd round, and this was an absolute steal in my opinion. Porter is an athletic freak who's 6'2" and ran a 4.3 40-yard dash. He doesn't offer a ton of run defense, but was excellent in coverage, allowing just a 4.7 passer rating when targeted. He's got good zone IQ and ball production, and is a smooth athlete. I think he immediately starts over Eric Stokes, and this was an excellent pick. They then make back-to-back picks at the end of the 3rd round. Their first was Caleb Rogers, who's a bit of an undersized tackle with shorter arms, but is super athletic. I think he could be a nice backup. The second was Charles Grant, and this was a pick I really liked. I thought he was good in both the pass and the run game, and his athleticism and arm length are a positive. He gets off the snap quickly and has good footwork. I think there is a world where he becomes a starter at some point. Their next pick, Dante Thornton, I also really like. Thornton is a fascinating prospect. He's 6'5", 205 pounds, and ran a 4.3 40-yard dash. That's absurd. Now, he doesn't have much variation in his routes and will likely be our primary vertical threat, and that's it, but he'll compete with Trey Tucker for that role, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. Great pick here. They then took Tonka Hemingway late in the 4th round, who's an undersized athletic D tackle who doesn't offer much in run defense, but could be a decent 3rd down pass rusher. Their first pick in the 6th round was one I liked, JJ Pegues. He's not much of an athlete, but he was productive at Ole Miss, especially as a run defender. He also played quite a bit on offense as a fullback, even scoring 7 rushing touchdowns in 2024. The Raiders could make some fun packages for him. Then they grabbed Tommy Mellott in the 6th round, who actually played QB in college, but due to his athletic traits and lack of real arm talent, he's making the switch to receiver. He's got good traits, so we'll see if it works out. 2 picks later, they took an actual quarterback in Cam Miller, and apparently Tom Brady lobbied for this guy, so we'll see if it works out. He takes care of the football and can make some plays with his legs. Their final pick, Cody Lindenberg, is a solid backup linebacker who is pretty smart but doesn't have a ton of athleticism and missed a bunch of tackles, and they didn't have any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave this draft an A+. They made a ton of picks, especially on days 1 and 2 that I really liked, and I think overall, the Raiders absolutely nailed this draft. Next up is the Denver Broncos, and we'll start with their 1st round pick, Jahdae Barron. I like this pick a lot because corner was a sneaky need for the Broncos. Their current nickel corner at the time was Jaquan McMillan, and he's not exactly good. Barron is a very versatile corner who had a breakout 2024 season, posting 5 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, and allowing just a 34.2 passer rating when targeted. Barron is good in coverage, but can also do the dirty work in run defense. I think he fits great with the Broncos, and that insane defense only got better with this pick. But I could not get behind taking RJ Harvey 60th overall. Running back was a need for this team, but I thought this was a big reach and there were much better backs available. I mean, Cam Scadabo and Caleb Johnson were right there. Harvey is fast, but he's small, doesn't offer much after contact, and also has inconsistent vision. He also is not a good pass blocker. Sean Payton obviously sees something in him that I don't, so we'll see if he works out, but I did think this was a reach. However, I did like their next pick, Pat Bryant. I think he'll be a better wide receiver 3 than Devon Vele. He's got good size, standing at 6'2", and he has incredibly safe hands. He's also got a large catch radius. However, he is slower, running a 4.6 240, and overall doesn't have much upside. But I think this was a good pick. They then took Savion Jones at the end of the third round. Jones is a big athletic edge rusher. He's got an explosive get-off and has some nice chop and rip moves, but he doesn't always recognize the run and needs to work on his timing. I think Jones is a good prospect who could be a solid rotational player. They then spent a 4th round pick on another edge rusher, Q Robinson, who's a bit of a smaller player but has quick change of direction and sets the edge well. He'll be a solid backup. They then took a punter, Jeremy Crenshaw. They needed a punter, so I'm fine with it. Then in the 7th round, they took a fascinating prospect in Caleb Lohner. Lohner actually started playing football this year, as he was previously a basketball player. He's only played 57 snaps of football in his career, and only caught 4 passes, but all 4 were touchdowns. Lohner possesses some insane traits. He's 6'7", 256 pounds, around a 4.69 40, plus he has a 37-inch vertical jump. I have no idea if he'll be anything in the league, but the potential is pretty high. I like this pick, and there were NDU DFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I give the Broncos a B-. They made a lot of nice picks, but I really didn't see it with the RJ Harvey pick, and that brings down this grade. Solid overall draft though. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers, and we'll start with Omarion Hampton 22nd overall. I liked Hampton. He was my RB2 and the value is absolutely there. The reason this isn't an A is because I would have much rather the Chargers take Matthew Golden here. Getting someone like Golden to pair with Justin Herbert's arm would have been dangerous. But Hampton is still really good, and this pick makes sense. Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. He wants to run the ball a lot. Having a 1-2 punch of Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton is going to be tough to stop. So in the end, I did think this was a good pick. They then took Trey Harris in the back half of the 2nd round, and I like this pick. I'm glad they addressed receiver, even if they didn't get the guy I would have liked to see them get. Harris is a mostly unproven receiver who has a lot of potential. He's got good size, yak ability, and run blocking ability. However, he did run a very condensed route tree at Ole Miss and also suffered a season-ending groin injury in 2024. However, I do like Harris, and with the right coaching, I think he could really be something. They then took Jamari Caldwell in the 3rd round, and yet again, I thought this was a good pick. Caldwell is a massive 332-pound nose tackle who's powerful and can take on double teams. He does sometimes lose control and end up on the ground, but overall, he is an absolute unit, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets significant playing time in his rookie season. They then took Kyle Kennard in the 4th round. He's got good size and 34-inch arms, and he was a solid pass rusher at South Carolina. He slips off blocks well and has good timing with his strikes. He does get knocked off balance sometimes, but overall, I think he could be a really solid edge 3. Then in the 5th round, they took Keandre Lambert-Smith, and this is their true deep threat. Smith ran a 4.37 40-yard dash and also possesses good hands and contested catch ability. I'm sure there's some packages where he can come in on the field and try to take the top off the defense, and I'm glad they brought in someone who can do that. They then took a Rondé Gadsden 7 picks later, who is a pretty abysmal blocker, but as a receiver could do some nice things. He's more of a big slot than a tight end, and I think the Chargers could find some use for him. They then took Branson Taylor in the 6th round, who's a larger guard and solid athlete, but did get hurt in 2024 and wasn't playing incredible to begin with. Later in the 6th round, they grabbed RJ Mickens, who's an athletic safety with good coverage ability, and in the 7th, they took Trequezie Bridges, who's a 6'2 athletic corner that was an all-around solid player. I like both of those picks. There was one UDFA that picked up that interested me, edge rusher Garmin Randolph, who's a 6'7", 266-pound edge rusher. You really don't see those all that often. Overall, I give the Chargers draft a B+. They made a lot of really nice picks, but there wasn't anything that blew me away. Good draft overall. For the final team in the AFC West, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're starting off with a great pick, Josh Simmons at the end of the 1st round. Simmons fell this far due to a season-ending ACL injury in 2024, but he is an incredible tackle prospect. He is an amazing pass protector, and we all know how much the Chiefs need pass protection after that last season's Super Bowl. The Chiefs needed a tackle, and they picked up one of the best in this class. Awesome pick. I didn't care quite as much for their 2nd round pick, however, Omar Norman Lott. Lott is an undersized D tackle and he's not that fast either. I don't entirely love the fit. I thought he would have been better as a 3-tech and a 3-4 base, not as a 2-tech or a 2-eye and a 4-3 base. But he was a productive pass rusher and is explosive, so we'll see what he turns out to be. They then took Ashton Gelati at the very top of the 3rd round, who's a super athletic edge rusher. He was especially good as a pass rusher, using speed to power well to collapse the pocket and plays with good pad level. He does enter a crowded edge room, so we'll see how much he plays, but I did like this pick. I like their other 3rd round pick even more though, Noel Williams. Williams broke out in 2024, showing off incredible ball production with 7 interceptions and 9 pass breakups, the most in his career, but also allowed the lowest passer rating when targeted at just 40.1, had the lowest reception percentage of his career at just 47.7%, and missed just 5.7% of his tackles, also the lowest of his career. He's not the most athletic, but he's a very high floor corner who I think could carve out a nice role here in Kansas City. They then got an absolute steal in Jalen Royals at the end of the 4th round. I thought Royals was a late 3rd to early 4th round guy, so the value was incredible. Royals doesn't do anything truly special, but he's a very solid player with good hands, contested catchability, and speed. He did suffer a season-ending foot injury in 2024, but I think he can bounce back from that, and this was overall a great pick. Then in the 5th round, they took Jeffrey Bassa, who's an athletic developmental linebacker, and in the 7th round, they took Brashard Smith, who's a small but super speedy and explosive back. I actually really like that pick, and there weren't any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave this draft an A-. I liked a lot of their picks, and I think they got some really good players. Moving on to the AFC South, where we'll start with the Tennessee Titans, the team that had the 1st overall pick, and unsurprisingly, they took Cam Ward. I've already talked a lot about Cam Ward on this channel, so I don't think I need to go into a ton of detail, but basically, Ward has great arm talent, mobility, and elite pocket presence, but does get over-aggressive sometimes. He was the clear-cut #1 quarterback in this class, and hopefully he's able to become the Titans franchise quarterback. Then in the 2nd round, they traded back and took Oluwafemi Oladejo. Oladejo is a decently sized edge rusher at 250 pounds, but is 33 and a 1/3 inch arms. He was a really nice run defender, but as a pass rusher, he left a bit to be desired. He's got good block shedding ability and can explode into a blocker or move around them. I like trading back and getting him though, and I think with the right coaching, he could become something. Then they took Kevin Winston Jr. in the 3rd round, and this was a steal. The upside with Winston is off the chart. He only played 2 games in 2024 due to a season-ending injury, but back in 2023, he was really good, especially as a run defender. Winston is an athletic freak with long arms and is an incredible tackler. He didn't miss a single tackle all of 2022 and 2023. He does need to work on his coverage ability, but I think Winston's upside is incredibly high, and this was a great pick. Then they grabbed Shamiri DK with the 1st pick in the 4th round, and this is their vertical threat. DK is 6 feet, 196 pounds, and ran a 4.34 40-yard dash. He does have some minor drop issues and isn't the best after the catch, but his deep threat, I really like this pick. Then the Titans got 2 steals in a row, Gunnar Helm and Alec Ayomanor. Helm is 6'5", 241 pounds, but his athleticism is not his strong suit. However, he's a super well-rounded tight end who can be a threat in the receiving game and a contributor in the run game as a blocker. The upside is limited, but I think the floor is very high. And Alec Ayomanor is a great outside receiver with a lot of appealing traits. He's 6'2", 206 pounds, around a 4.47 40-yard dash. He's got a large catch radius, and his route running is also a plus. I think he could be a really nice X receiver. Both of these picks were awesome. Then in the 5th round, they took Jackson Slater, who's a bit of a smaller guy, but has great athleticism and uses it well. Their final 2 picks were both 6th rounders that I thought were just fine. Marcus Harris is a very small but speedy corner, and Khalil Mullings is a big, bruising back, but doesn't have amazing vision. But I know you noticed that A+ UDFA grade, and spoiler alert, the Titans are the only team to get an A+ UDFA grade. That's because they signed Xavier Restrepo, who I had as a 2nd round wide receiver prospect. Restrepo only went undrafted because of a 4.8 40-yard dash that he ran while injured, but on the field, he plays much faster than that. He was actually Cam Ward's teammate at Miami, so pairing them back up together is nice. Overall, I gave this draft an A+. I loved almost all of their picks, from their #1 overall pick down to their UDFAs. This was an incredible draft. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a very polarizing draft to say the least. We are starting off great though with Travis Hunter, who the Jaguars traded up to get. And yes, they are basically spending 2 first-round picks on Hunter, but at the same time, if Hunter plays both ways, then you're essentially getting 2 players with those 2 first-round picks. So everything checks out. Hunter is the best overall prospect in this draft, and he is elite at both corner and receiver. His ball skills on both sides of the ball are some of the best you'll ever see, and he's also an incredible athlete. I hope the Jaguars let him try to play on both sides, because I think he could make a real impact. Wouldn't it be something if Hunter wins both offensive and defensive rookie of the year? But I didn't like their next pick at all, and that was Caleb Ransaw. To take Ransaw, a day 3 developmental safety, over Xavier Watts made no sense to me. Ransaw has some really nice athletic traits, but the dude just can't play football. He had virtually no ball production his entire career, he's got poor footwork, he's got shorter arms, and he had 4 penalties in 2024, the most in his career. He also wasn't playing against great competition, but still struggled. I thought this was a massive reach, and I really didn't like it. Oh, we're back up to the A+ again with Wyatt Milam. This was an absolute steal, and he should have gone much earlier. He's got an incredibly high floor, and his technical ability is fantastic, especially as a pass blocker. He's smart and wins early and often. He isn't all that athletic, but I think he fits really well with Jacksonville, who aren't going to be a primarily wide zone team. This was an awesome pick. They then had another pick that I really liked, Bashal Tutin. I don't love taking Tutin over Cam Scatabo, but Tutin is still a really good prospect prospect. He's a smaller back but is fast as lightning, running a 4.32 40-yard dash. The big plays are just waiting to happen, and he brings some explosiveness to this running back room that they just don't have. But while I like those two picks, I really didn't like them taking two linebackers, Jack Kaiser and Jalen McLeod. It's like we go back and forth between good and bad, good, bad, bad. Kaiser's an unathletic, smaller, run-defending linebacker that can't hold up in coverage, and Jalen McLeod is a hybrid edge linebacker type that is basically Jalen Walker if you ordered him off Temu, but the package was damaged overseas. In other words, he sucks. Then the Jags ended with two fine picks. Ryu and Lane is a small, unathletic safety but was good in coverage, and Jordan Monheim is a very average center that isn't going to be anything more than a backup. I did like their final pick, LaQuinn Allen, who was a productive running back at Syracuse that was both good as a runner and a receiver, so we'll see what he can do in the league. And there weren't any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave this draft a B. They made a lot of really good picks, but they also made a lot of really shitty picks. This will be an interesting one to look back on in a few years. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts, and we're starting off great with Tyler Warren. I thought Tyler Warren was the best tight end in this class, and tight end was probably the biggest position of need for the Colts entering the draft. He checks every single box: size, speed, hands, route running, he's got it all. If Anthony Richardson is able to not throw the ball 5 yards above his head, I think Warren can be a monster in the league. They then spent a second round pick on JT Tuimoloau, and I didn't think this pick was bad, but it was a little early. He's a bigger guy and is a nice run defender, but he has a lot of room to grow as a pass rusher. He sheds blocks easily and utilizes his length well, but he doesn't have much bend and his hand placement isn't great. I think he could come in on early downs and be a nice run stopper, but I want to see him develop more as a pass rusher. They then spent their third round pick on Justin Wally, who's an athletic corner, but he's undersized and misses a ton of tackles. He also is too aggressive sometimes, and while that can lead to some nice plays, it also leads to him getting beat. I think Wally's a fine player, but as an early fourth round pick, not a mid third. It was just early for me. But I did like taking Jalen Travis in the fourth round. Travis is a massive 6'8", 339-pound tackle with 35-inch arms. He's a freak athlete and uses his big hands and long arms to disrupt pass rushers. However, due to his size, he can't always keep up with these faster edge rushers and did struggle as a run blocker. But I'm always okay with taking these bigger developmental tackles on day 3, and I like this pick. Then the Colts grabbed a steal in DJ Giddens, who went way later than I thought he should have. I thought Giddens was a solid late third round prospect, and I think he immediately becomes the Colts RB2. He's got a good blend of speed and power and is overall pretty well rounded. He's got good size, 6 feet, 212 pounds, and ran a 4.43 40-yard dash. As a backup to Jonathan Taylor, I think this was a great pick. Then they took Riley Leonard in the 6th round, which was fine. He takes care of the football and can make some plays with his legs, but his lack of accuracy and pocket presence limit him. He's a fine QB3. They then took Tim Smith with the pick after, who's an okay backup run defending D tackle, and they took Hunter Wooler in the 7th round, who's a well-built guy and did some nice things as a box safety / linebacker, and there weren't any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave the Colts draft an A-. I didn't love their day 2, but getting Tyler Warren was awesome, and I thought their day 3 was really good as well. Great overall draft. Our final team in the AFC South is the Houston Texans, who traded out of the first round and took Jaden Higgins with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round. Higgins was my wide receiver 6, and he was the 6th receiver off the board, and this was exactly where I had him going, early 2nd round. He's very similar to Nico Collins in a way. He's 6'4", 217 pounds, which is almost the same size as Nico, and their testing numbers are nearly identical. And what's better than one Nico Collins? 2 Nico Collins. Now, I'm not saying Jaden Higgins is going to become Nico Collins, but they do have similar skill sets, and that is Higgins' ceiling. He's got great hands and contested catch ability, and his overall catch radius is massive. I think he plugs right in as the other outside receiver opposite Collins, and this was a great pick. They then took Arianti Ursary later in the 2nd round, and this was a great pick as well. Ursary's a 6'6", 331-pound tackle who ran a 5.01 40-yard dash. He's got strong hands and times his jabs well. I think he can start immediately at right tackle, and this was a great pick. The Texans then took the other Iowa State receiver, Jalen Noel, and I thought this was a steal. While Higgins is the outside guy, Noel is the speedy slot guy. He ran a 4.39 40 and also possesses good agility and change of direction. Taking Noel makes sense because Tank Dell is going to miss the entirety of the 2025 season, and when he gets back, he and Noel can rotate in with each other in that slot role. They then grabbed another Jalen, and this time Jalen Smith. Smith is a small, speedy corner who did some nice things in coverage for USC. He's good in press man coverage and could stick with deep routes. However, he never had great ball production, and his tackling hasn't been great. But as a slot corner, I think he can do some nice things, and this would allow Jalen Petrie to move back to strong safety, so I like the overall process behind this pick. But then things start going downhill, as I didn't like taking Woody Marks this early. He's not that big or fast and doesn't force many missed tackles. I just thought there were better backs available. Then they took their third Jalen, this time Jalen Reed, who's shorter but well built at 211 pounds, and ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. He's good in run defense, but really wasn't good in coverage at all. They then took Graham Mertz 10 picks later, and I mean, it's a 6th round pick, so who really cares? But at the same time, Graham Mertz sucks ass, so let's just move on. They finished with 2 7th round picks that were both fine. Keontae Hamilton is an athletic D tackle, but just not that good on the football field, and Luke Lackey is a 6'6 head end who's got good hands, but not a great blocker or route runner, and they didn't have any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I give the Texans a B+. I thought they had a really good day 2, but their day 3 just wasn't good enough to get them into the A's. Great overall draft though. Moving on to the final division, the AFC East, well, we'll start with the New England Patriots. They began by selecting Will Campbell 4th overall, and this pick makes a lot of sense. They desperately need to protect Drake May, but I did think it was slightly early. I saw Campbell as a top 10 prospect, but not quite a top 5 prospect. That being said, Campbell is still really good. Despite having shorter arms, he has great technique and is also super smart. His short arms could hinder him, but I really did like Campbell. They then took Travion Henderson at the top of the 2nd round, and my only criticism of this pick is that I wish they would have gone Luther Burden and taken a running back with the 3rd round pick. But they saw Travion was available and they had to take him, and how couldn't you? Yeah, I'll acknowledge the vision problems, those need to be fixed if he's going to be anything in this league, but I think the potential with Henderson is ultra high. He is a big play just waiting to happen. He averaged 7 yards per carry in 2024, and his speed and explosiveness is something else. He also did a lot of nice work in the receiving game. I think overall this was an amazing pick, even if I would have maybe gone in a different direction. But they did address receiver with their 3rd round pick, taking Kyle Williams, and I loved it. Williams immediately slots in as a starter in this room, and potentially even the wide receiver too. Williams is a smaller but super speedy receiver who is your prototypical Z. He's shifty and dynamic with the ball in his hands. He also has great ball skills and tracks the deep ball really well. He does sometimes refrain from going up and getting the ball, sometimes he'll let it come to him, but overall he's going to fit right into this Patriots receiving core. Great pick. They then stole Jared Wilson in the late 3rd round, who, I'll be honest, might start over Garrett Bradbury right away, or at least eventually start over Garrett Bradbury. Wilson is an athletic freak, standing at 6'3", 310 pounds and running a 4.9 40-yard dash. He scored a 9.98 out of 10 on the RAS, ranking him number 2 out of 622 centers since 1987. But he isn't just athletic traits, he also played really well at Georgia. He's nimble and rangy and uses his hands well. I think this was a great pick, and Wilson could be the Patriots' long-term solution at center. They then took Craig Woodson at the top of the 4th round, who's a versatile safety with good coverage ability. I thought this was a good pick. Another good pick was their second 4th round pick, Joshua Farmer. Farmer's a 6'3", 305 pound D tackle who did some nice things as a pass rusher but lacks some run defense. I think he could be a solid backup 3 tech. They then grabbed Braden Swinson in the 5th round, and I thought this was a great pick. Swinson was a super productive pass rusher at LSU who's got great agility and uses his acceleration to overwhelm and get to the QB quickly. He did miss a good amount of tackles and sometimes ducked his head, but overall, I thought that he was a really solid prospect, and this was a great pick. Then they took a kicker, Andy Borgalis, which is fine, and then they grabbed Marcus Bryant at the top of the 7th round, who's a 6'7", 320 pound tackle who ran a 4.97 40-yard dash. He also has 35-inch arms. That's a very intriguing combination of traits. He wasn't all that good in Missouri, but his traits are definitely worth betting on. They then took a long snapper in Julian Ashby, so okay, and then they took Kobe Miner with the Mr. Irrelevant pick, who doesn't really have any desirable traits but was a solid corner at Memphis, and they didn't have any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave this draft an A-. I really like what they did on day 2, and they made a lot of nice picks on day 3 as well, plus getting Will Campbell helps of course. This was a great draft all around. Next up is the New York Jets, and we'll start with their 7th overall pick, Armand Membu, and this was obviously a great pick. The Jets' biggest need was right tackle, so they went out and got the best right tackle in this class. Membu is a super athletic tackle with huge upside. He's explosive, has great footwork, and is overall really good in both pass protection and run blocking. This pick made perfect sense for the Jets and is an easy A grade. They then grabbed Mason Taylor in the 2nd round. He's not a great blocker, but he's athletic and offers a lot as a receiver. He's got super safe and secure hands, he's a good route runner, and his overall upside is pretty pretty high. He's going to immediately be the tight end 1, and I thought this was a great pick. They then took Azariah Thomas in the 3rd round. He's got good size, 6'1", 197 pounds, but he's slower for a corner, running a 4.58 40-yard dash. Weirdly enough, he did play well in single coverage, but in the NFL, he's going to need safety up over the top pretty much at all times, so it's going to be hard to run cover 1 and leave him on an island. But he is a good player, so I'm hoping the Jets can find some ways to use him, despite his limitations. They then took Arian Smith in the 4th round, and this was just a reach. I thought there were much better receivers available, like Alec Ayomanor. Smith is super fast, and that's great, but the dude can't catch for shit. He has a 17.2% drop rate and a 22.2% contested catch rate in 2024. He really has to hit the jugs machine hard, or he isn't going to be anything in the NFL. But the Jets did rebound with Malachi Moore in the late 4th round, and I thought this was a really good pick. He's not the fastest or tallest or anything like that, and he does have shorter arms, just 29 3/4 inches. But he's just a good football player. He doesn't miss many tackles, he has good ball production, and he didn't give up much in coverage. Like, the dude can just play. Is his upside limited? Yeah, but I think this still was a really good pick. They then took Francisco Mauigoa in the 5th round, who's a speedy linebacker but kind of sucked in coverage and missed a bunch of tackles. And then 14 picks later, they took Tyler Barron, who's an athletic edge rusher but not much more. They did grab Donovan Edwards as a UDFA, which is interesting, so that was notable. Overall, I gave the Jets a B+. Their first 2 picks were really good, and the rest of the draft outside of Arian Smith was also pretty solid. I think they did a great job. Next up is the Miami Dolphins, and we're starting with Kenneth Grant 13th overall. I like Grant, but I didn't see him as a top 15 player. I saw more as a later 1st to early 2nd round guy, so this was early for me. But Grant is a good prospect. He's a massive 330-pound nose tackle who is great in run defense. He can take on double teams and open up lanes for the guys next to him. He doesn't bring a ton as a pass rusher himself though. Overall, a good pick. They then grabbed Jonas Savanaia early in the 2nd round, and he'll likely be a day 1 starter. He's an athletic but big guard, standing at 6'4", 324 pounds. He's tough to beat quickly and is good with his hands. However, his body control is inconsistent and he doesn't always recognize twists. I think he's a solid player, and this was a good pick. We then go all the way to the 5th round for the Dolphins' next pick, and that's Jordan Phillips. Phillips is a big 312-pound D tackle who's solid but not special. He didn't have a ton of production in Maryland, but does have a good first step and utilizes spin counter as well. Be a decent backup. They then took Jason Marshall Jr., who's a bit of a slower corner who had good ball production, but that's kind of it. He also suffered a season-ending injury, limiting him to just 7 games in 2024. They then took Dante Trader Jr. 6 picks later, who's a smaller safety and also just not that good. He can do some nice things in run defense, but he's not a good coverage safety. They then grabbed Ollie Gordon in the 6th round, who's a big, powerful back, but he's slower and he completely fell off in 2024, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But if he can return to his 2023 form, he'll be good in the league. They then took Quinn Ewers in the 7th round, and I'm not surprised he fell this far. He was not a good prospect in my eyes. His pocket presence was just abysmal, but in the 7th round, betting on a traitsy guy like Ewers is fine. They then took another developmental player in Zeke Biggers, who's a big 321-pound nose tackle. He wasn't very good at Georgia Tech, but has some nice traits, including 35-inch arms. And they did have some notable UDFAs. Jalen Conyers is a smaller tight end prospect with great agility and solid hands, and Andrew Armstrong is a big 6'3" receiver with secure hands and good contested catch ability. Overall, I give the Dolphins draft a B. They made a lot of very solid picks, but nothing amazing. Moving on to the final team for this video, the Buffalo Bills. They started by taking Maxwell Hairston 30th overall, who's a smaller corner, just 5'11", 183 pounds, but he ran a 4.29 40-yard dash, the fastest out of any corner this year. That is obviously very appealing, but he isn't just speed, he's also good in coverage. He has good anticipation reading the quarterback and has good footwork. Now, this is a B and not an A because Hairston did suffer an injury causing him to miss much of the 2024 season, and he also is just a really bad run defender, but as an outside corner, this was a good pick. The Bills then traded up for TJ Sanders, giving up 2 second-round picks and recouping a 3rd-round pick in the process. This was admittedly a lot to give up, but I think Sanders is a good player. He's quick and overwhelms his blockers with well-placed, powerful hand strikes. He isn't an amazing run defender, but as a pass rusher, I thought this was a good pick, though I wish they hadn't given up 2 seconds. But with the 3rd-round pick they acquired in that trade, they drafted Landon Jackson, and I thought this was a great pick. Jackson is an athletic freak. He's 6'6", 264 pounds, and ran a 4.69 40-yard dash, and at a 40.5-inch vertical jump on top of that. He is a solid pass rusher, but a really good run defender. He's got good timing and uses his hands well. Joey Bosa is pretty much guaranteed to miss time this season, so getting a talented guy like Jackson in there was great. They then stole Deion Walker in the 4th round, who's a truly unique prospect. He's a 6'7", 331-pound nose tackle who's slow but mostly one with finesse moves like swim moves, club moves, things like that. And being 6'7", he does often lose the leverage battle and has a hard time anchoring in run defense. Walker is a fascinating player, and I'm excited to see what the Bills can do with him. They then took Jordan Hancock at the end of the 5th round, who's an athletic slot corner who's good at disrupting catches with his size and actually had decent ball production in 2024, but he doesn't have much route anticipation and overall instincts. He'll be a solid backup. They then took Jackson Hawes 3 picks later, who didn't do much in the receiving game, but is the best blocking tight end in this entire class. In 12 personnel, he'll basically be a 6th lineman out there, so I like that pick. I also like Dorian Strong at the top of the 6th round. Strong isn't the fastest or anything, but he's a solid coverage player and a sound tackler. Their final 2 picks were both fine. Chase Luntz is a 6'7" tackle, but is only 304 pounds and has shorter arms. He's too tall to play guard, but doesn't have enough length to play tackle, so we'll see what he ends up doing. And then Caden Prather is a 6'3" receiver with good speed, but couldn't convert on contested catches and gets jammed in press coverage. And there were any UDFAs that stood out to me. Overall, I gave the Bills an A-. I think they made a lot of really nice picks, especially in the middle rounds, and this was a great draft. So here is every AFC team's draft graded. I thought the teams with the best drafts in the AFC were the Steelers, Raiders, and Titans, who all received A+. And the team I thought that had the worst draft in the AFC was the Bengals, who received a C. But here is every single NFL team's draft graded. The teams I thought that had the best drafts in the entire NFL were the Steelers, Raiders, and Titans, who all received A+. And the teams I thought that had the worst drafts in the entire NFL were the 49ers and Bengals, who both received C's. But where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Comment below. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new. This video took a ton of time to make, so I would really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to go watch my NFC draft grades that I posted last week. But that's it for me. See ya!